Welcome back to the Two-Tone Report. I'm Ryan Smith. Guy right above me, looking at his phone like a monkey, is Ethan Jacobs. It's a beautiful Friday morning, early Friday morning. Obviously, yesterday, Robert Saleh had his introductory press conference as the Titans' new head coach. We got a chance to listen to it and have our thoughts on all the questions that we're asking, what he said to that. Ethan, man, it's early and I'm tired.
Yeah, dude, me too. Getting it, but we out here grinding, son. We out
We
here
both got to go to
grinding.
work after this, so this is going to be really fun. But
Yeah.
I didn't get the chance to listen to it, like I just said. What were your thoughts, man?
Well, it was exciting. It really was. I'd say that there was just a commanding presence in the room. There was someone there who was about business, about getting stuff done. Um, Clearly, some of the lines were rehearsed because I listened to 3HL with Ramon, Kayla, and Will. No, that's Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 3HL with Ron Slay, What's His Nuts, and Don
Yeah, man.
Davenport.
I
Um,
know those guys.
yeah, it's a local radio show here in Nashville, and Sala was on there, and he definitely had the same lines that he would say because he
Oh,
said
yeah.
it in the Titans interview that they posted with Taylor Zarzor, the new uh, voice of the Titans. But the line about you're gonna feel this team when you're sitting on the couch in your living room. I was like, I like to see that. I like to hear that. That's awesome. Um, yeah, it felt good. It felt good to see. It felt good to hear. It felt
Yeah.
real. Felt like a coach.
Yeah, and I think that's just kind of what a large part of these intro pressers are kind of just for, to get the fans excited. I know we've both had our fair share of them over the past, since we've been watching football because of the lack of success and the new head coaches that seem to be coming in every 5 years. But like, it was exciting to hear him talk. The thing that really popped out to me whenever he was talking about the team is fast and violent, fast and violent, fast and violent. Feels like he said it every other sentence when talking about how this team is going to play. And, you know, that was something we talked about in the first episode, was like, we want to see this team get back to the way that it was, when they were really rolling, being physical and really getting after a dude and, punching him in the mouth. And obviously with Salah and his background, it kind of seems like that was going to be it. But to hear him keep saying that, fast and violent, like you said, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel this team in the way they play, sitting on the couch every Sunday and Thursday and Monday whenever they play. It's like, it's a refreshing thing to see, but at the end of the day, it's all words, and words don't really mean anything whenever you actually go out onto the field and play. And we're not going to see that until August and early September. So, you know, just kind of breaking down some of the other things that he said. Obviously, whenever media was asking him questions, one of the things that got brought up a lot was Dayball. That was the pretty much the first couple of questions that got asked was about him, and I thought it was interesting. Some of the things that he said were kind of, we had talked about why you bring in a guy like Brian Dayball to be the offensive coordinator, and he didn't. Solid didn't shy away from it at all. He literally said whenever he was asked about it, the first like concise time was like, yeah, he's got that history of developing young quarterbacks, and we all expected that. That's what we like. You bring in a guy like Brian Dayball to try and get Cam Ward to be what he can be, and they're never actually going to say it, but he did end up saying it. It's like, this is pretty much why we brought him in, to help Cam Ward out, which is can be interesting. I think we both saw that with him in New York, trying to fix Daniel Jones and all the shit that he was left with pretty much in the previous regime whenever he got drafted. And then obviously you think about guys that are tied together. You see it a lot in draft classes, but also in coaching carousels as well. Brian Dable and Mike McDaniel were both hired in the same coaching carousel, and obviously both of those guys ended up getting fired in the same year because they were essentially attached to the hip at trying to fix quarterbacks that teams had invested a very high draft capital into, with Daniel Jones being a top five pick and then Tua also being the fifth overall pick, and both those guys struggling early in their career, and then you know coming to be the best version of themselves. I would say hard to say for Daniel Jones, obviously with what he did with the Colts before he blew out his leg, but uh, it's it's hard to see guys attached to the hip whenever it comes to quarterbacks. But I think when it comes to offensive coordinator base, you kind of expect it, especially with Dayball's history and didn't shy away from it in the press conference. Solid, and so it was, I guess, kind of just confirming everything we thought. There was a lot of that as well in this press conference.
Yeah, there was. You got to think. This is Salah's trying to find his version of himself. Like he was Dayball to Shanahan for the defense in San Francisco. He didn't have to worry about the defense at all. He wants that for the offense, and he wants to be the head coach. He says like all the cliche things. He's like,
Yeah,
whenever whoever wins either rep, I win because I'm the head coach. You know, uh, and you're just looking to see like all you can do, as we mentioned, is try to give the best opportunity for your team to win as many games as possible, and that's all you can do. You can go with the best coach that you have the most evidence towards, and Dayball is that. He's worked. I mean, Jackson Dart was having a great start to his career, and I mean, if you look at some of the stuff after Dayball left, didn't play very good after Dayball left. I
I
mean,
mean he was hurt for
it's
a lot
hard
of
to
it. This guy's
change.
probably got CTE here in year one at this point,
It's
launching his head
true.
into everything. Him and Scadaboo.
Yeah,
But
of course, Scadaboo being hurt, Malik Neighbors being hurt, but I mean,
yeah,
um, the play definitely dropped off a cliff after Dayball left, uh, and I think it just all depends on how long Dayball wants to stay in Nashville. Like, is he trying to be a one and done? Is he trying to find his successor? Which this is interesting because we talked about this
yeah,
the previous episode. It was my opinion, which I've seen on Twitter that other people agreed. I never saw someone else say this, and I thought that was interesting. Was that Luke Stalker has made it through three different coaching regimes. He made it through Mike Vrabel because he was a player for Mike, and then he got a coaching opportunity. Worked his way up, was a tight ends coach, stayed the tight ends coach under Brian Callahan, and has been retained under Robert Saleh. Clearly, they see some talent there, and I feel as if in the future, because he took over the run game coordinating stuff, as we mentioned in the previous episode, and that's why people think the run game blossomed as it did. Clearly, Saleh was happy with it.
yeah,
I think they're eyeing him to be a potential future offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans as Dayball's replacement potentially, and they're trying to, maybe Dayball gives them a little bit more or takes him under his wing. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that because he also, as I switch over the graphic that's supposed to be on the screen, he mentioned that somebody had asked him a question. I think it was forget the guy who asked him, but
Paul
he asked,
Kaharski.
yeah, Paul asked him, you know, contingency plans for Dayball if everything does go right, and he does field a top 15, top 10 offense, and if you do that, obviously him being a previous head coach, he's gonna get head coaching offers and things like that. Who's probably gonna end up being a one and done, like you said. What is going to be the plan? And he mentioned, and Salah mentioned that he's like, yeah, I feel very confident, and we feel very confident that in that offensive coaching room, we have multiple guys who can be an offensive coordinator, be in the offensive coordinator chair here in the next couple of years. So, you kind of hit the nail on the head with that whenever we were talking about it, where, guys who are sitting on the roster, sitting in the coaching staff, primarily on the offensive side of the ball, have that opportunity to be an OC here in the near future, especially if Dayball does end up being a one and done, which I think if he does, and it's for the right reason, I don't think any Titans fans are going to be super upset at it. They're going to be like, yeah, go get your bag, man. But it's not. It's good to see that they kind of had that plan in place, and the way that they referenced it was interesting because he kind of treated it as young coaches should be developed in the same way as young players, and that might be a common thing, but I never really heard it coming out of with some of these coaches where it's like you've got these younger position coaches. These guys are going to be sort of like these young players, and they're the future of developing these guys into some of the best players that they can be, and if they don't have a stable foundation, a good footing to where they can actually produce talent in the best way, then it's just going to fail, and you're failing as a head coach if you do that. So it was interesting to hear him talk about that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Um, you know, when we keep looking at this, I'm sure there's gonna be more content that comes out behind the scenes and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. But there was another story that Robert told on 3HL. You know how we talked about the 9/11 story, right?
yeah, I do. I
Uh,
remember. I remember that.
he went into that a little bit, um, and then it wasn't that big. I think he wasn't trying to talk about it. I think he's talked about it before, and it was one of those things. It's like, hey, if you heard it once, no need to hear it twice. So
Yeah.
he didn't really go into it, but he did mention a story where he was working under Brian Kelly at Central Michigan, which, by the way, I believe, okay, hopefully I'm not wrong on this. I think in Central Michigan under Brian Kelly, or maybe it was Houston. I don't know, but they were working together, trying to be. Salah was interviewing to be a position coach, and apparently he had been fasting because he cared about his health. This was what he said. It could have been a religious thing, because I know he is Muslim, so it could have been that. Uh, but he tried to steer clear of that, saying that on national radio. Maybe that's for the best. I don't know. There's some people here who are quite uh, non-tolerant, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, he was talking about how he was interviewing for a position coach job, and he's talking on the whiteboard. He's writing down these plays, and he's talking about why he should be the coach. And he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this," and then apparently he just goes black. It just goes black.
He's back
And he said that he woke up on the ground with the coach slapping his face,
in.
and he's like, "What happened?" And apparently Matt LaFleur is running down the hallway screaming for an ambulance.
Oh my god,
So yeah, it was a crazy story. I was like, "That's pretty
that's
funny."
wild.
He's like, "Yeah, I was fine. I just had." He's like, I was just fasting, so my blood sugar was super low." And he's like, "I guess just the pressure of it
Yeah,
made me pass out."
I'm sure like
So I
you
was
did
like,
stressful ass environment already doesn't have a whole lot of fuel in the tank and just out.
Crazy. Yeah, I thought that was funny. See, it's so cool listening to Sala because, like, let's be real here. And Paul Gaharski would confirm, because he agrees. I saw his tweet about it. When Brian Callahan was introduced as the head coach, um, everyone had a very positive view of Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan is very good at talking to the media and making you care about him. Um, he was very good at. I met Brian Callahan. Uh, Great guy, nice guy, awesome guy. Took a picture with him. Um, it just seemed like a dude who really cared. It was never for lack of care or lack of passion,
Yeah,
but this just felt like a different presence, if you know what I mean. Like it just felt like a little bit more less sensitive. Like Callahan was a little bit softer. He was a little bit like more. It was just like just not as much. Sometimes it
passion.
didn't feel like he
Like
was a
not
football coach,
okay. Yeah, yeah,
you
no,
know?
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Where it's
Like
like,
it just felt like he felt very much like an offensive coordinator. Like where he was just like he just didn't but Salah just feels like a leader. He feels like a general, you know? It feels like it's hard to describe and I'm just talking around myself. But I think anyone who watched the press conference comparing it to Brian Callahan's, if you watch that, you can tell the difference quite easily.
yeah, you could definitely tell there was some muffled intensity with Salah. He was trying to like not. You could tell if he could, he would be screaming. He would be like
Yeah, he was like,
really bold spoken whenever he was talking about it. You could tell there was that muffled intensity that he was trying to just like not be like super fired up about it, which you like to see. I'm assuming that's kind of what you meant whenever you're talking about the Callahan. He was just more soft spoken, maybe more articulate, not articulate, but just I'm trying to
no,
find the
it's
best word
true.
for this, but it's like he's a lot more soft spoken, not as, intense or maybe as passionate with his words as maybe what Salah was. And I get it, and that's what these intro pressers are for. They're there to get the fans excited for the new regime and these things. It's easy because you obviously don't have any sort of pressure or any expectations of having to answer tough questions because at the end of the day you haven't played a single game yet, and there is no worry of having that, hey, why do you guys suck, why are you guys losing a lot, because you haven't yet. And hopefully that doesn't happen here. Hopefully they do field a good enough season to where there's some optimism going on, which I think we both kind of expect to see with this because we were both talking about it yesterday after the press conference happened with Saleh's defenses. You know that first year with the Jets wasn't very good, but also looking at the roster for the Jets, you had Quinnen Williams, who was still on his first contract, and a bunch of Jags, right, a bunch of guys in on the defensive side of the ball, and it wasn't very good. And then you get later into his tenure, and that's when you saw this defense start to figure things out. And obviously, he wasn't calling plays, which another thing. He did confirm he was going to be calling plays, which was another one of those things that we sort of figured was going to happen, saw
Hmm.
happening, and then obviously he confirms it. So it could be a big difference from his tenure with the Jets, calling plays and seeing maybe some earlier success with the defense, but we'll have to end up seeing on that. And it's kind of funny that I mentioned the Jets. He was asked, I think, two questions about that in that presser where he's like, "What would you do differently?" basically, and he chuckled and he said, "I don't know if we have the time," which I think just kind of
Yeah,
shows that he knows that it was bad. Which I think it doesn't exactly take
of
a
course.
genius. It doesn't take a genius to realize that what happened in New York wasn't exactly the best.
There might have been a little call out to Woody Johnson as well. When he was giving
Stirring up the drama.
yeah, I wouldn't even say he was trying to, but he was
No.
he was talking about Miss Amy, the Titans controlling owner, and he was like, she puts her money where her mouth is, and it seemed very poignant comparing to Woody Johnson,
I mean, yeah.
who puts money everywhere where it doesn't matter and wherever he wants. It's not like he's. I think Woody Johnson's thing is he says a whole lot of things. He says he's going to do this, says he's going to do that, and he just doesn't, and he does what he wants.
Yeah.
Which is why he's considered to be one of the worst owners, or the worst owner in the NFL.
Yeah, it's bad.
Um, but I also found another interesting tidbit when I listened to the radio show. Um, which, by the way, I guess it's not super super interesting. But he was asked. He was like, "Hey," by Ron Slay. He was asked what player or players did you find, draft, or want drafted and develop that you are super proud of, that when they call you or something, it just makes you smile, because they made it, they made the play, they did it, compared to what they were or they were like thought of.
Yeah.
Hold on, I've got an alarm going off right now. That's so
It's early,
awesome.
man. You're supposed to be waking up by now for work. You're out here grinding.
What alarm even is that?
Speaking of, I should probably actually turn off some of my alarms because I definitely have one that's about to go off. Oh, that would be bad. I've got an interesting
Okay.
one. You know that sound where it's like these fucking bears talking. I got that. I got that as my alarm. I don't know why. Dude, it scared the shit out of me one
Drake
time. I woke up and
May.
it was like these fucking bears. I scared the shit out of me. Like, oh my god, freak out.
Dude, that's the funniest video of all time. I wish I was a Patriots fan. They have it so good. They have it so good. They don't
Speaking of,
deserve it. Drake May.
the alarm just went off. I thought I turned them off. It's
Okay.
so I
But
love that. But
all right. Hopefully get that do you have the timestamp? I do a timestamp so you know to cut that out, unless you want to keep this in here. But
I don't care either way. It's at about 20 minutes, so I guess I'll write
okay.
it down. But
Um all right, I'm just going to restart here. So, yeah, so I was listening to Ramon, Kayla, and Will uh Ah, dang, I messed that up again. I was
Just,
listening to
just,
3HL.
just keep going. Like go where you were at, because I mean it's fine.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. Yeah, so Salah was talking about players that he developed, and he was talking about how proud he was of them, and how you know happy he was to see their development from where they were projected in the rounds, or how they didn't have a successful stint with their previous team. And we talked about these two guys. The first name he mentioned was Fred Warner, who was a day
Yeah,
two pick, who he saw the talent, and he ended up being one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Uh, just a freak athlete, and he
yeah,
saw that and he developed, and it was just he was pretty proud of that, and he was also proud of Quincy Williams. Um, he said that he came from a team and it just wasn't very successful, and he wanted to turn his career around. And when he got there, and I think being with his brother, uh, helped him through the
yeah.
process. And it's just this is just two guys he mentioned quickly, but linebacker's been a spot of trouble for us for quite a while. We haven't really had a incredible linebacker in a long time. Uh, so that might be nice. Linebacker's really important in Robert Saleh's defense. Uh, so we got a young guy here in Cedric Gray. Let's turn him into an All Pro. Let's see what he can do. Um,
And
and
we
there's going to be a lot of talent in this draft too.
yeah, that was something we talked about yesterday as well, or that I had mentioned a little bit, was Jacob Rodriguez, guy at Texas Tech. I think he made some pretty big waves in the college football world, trying to make that push for the, just to be in the Heisman race. Probably should have been over Julian Sand, who was just, I don't even know why he was there, to be totally honest with you. Because
Numbers, that's it.
I think, I want to say Jacob Rodriguez got more first place votes than Sand did, but either way, he just seems like a solid guy, because he is I
He
mean,
does.
he is a really good off-ball linebacker, which is obviously what it feels like he kind of excels in development. Because you mentioned guys like Fred Warner, who's obviously, I think he's the best off-ball linebacker in the league right now. I know he was hurt for this season, but still, I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best, off-ball linebacker. And when you've got a guy in Jacob Rodriguez who is just, he just finds himself around the ball. I think during Senior Bowl practice, he had two forced fumbles and a pick yesterday, which just kind of just shows everything about that. I
Trying to see
really
when
just
he's
think
projected.
I think he's projected as like a late day three, early
A
or late
late day
no
three?
late day two, early day three guy, like late third round, fourth round guy. I think is where he's
That's crazy.
projected
Is he
out.
just not fast? I would have expected like a second round pick, especially with
I just
like
don't.
the production he's had. Is he just not fast?
No, I don't
How tall is
know.
he?
It's just, when it comes to the draft, they always draft guys who are like, they draft athletes first and try to develop them, i.e., guys like Anthony Richardson. But uh, I just, when it comes to, I'm looking at it right now, he's 6'1", 230, which is, a decent size for an off-ball linebacker. Like I said, I think he, I think is just projected to be in that like day two, day three, like could go second round, third round, fourth round. I think is where that's kind of projected to be at. But he just seems like a Robert
That's
Saleh guy.
so interesting.
Yeah, I think we've kind of noticed this. NFL doesn't really care that much about draft or about how you produce in college. It's more about your athletic build and things like that is kind of
Yeah, your
the biggest
intangibles.
determinant. Yeah, I mean, because
Because I mean, you're going against the biggest athletes, biggest, baddest athletes, because everyone else drafts those guys too. So you need
yeah,
speed. You hope to you can develop and like make a Jacob Rodriguez in a guy's body who's 6'4",
yeah,
250, uh, instead of 6'1", 230. You hope you can get that out of one of those athletes.
exactly. But going back to this press conference, trying not to get on too big of a tangent here. Some of the other things that I had sort of noticed whenever, and this wasn't from Solace, from Borgo. It was whenever he's talking about Cam Ward and the timetable. And I know you talked about it, not really as worried about it as I am, I guess, because I don't know. But didn't really give much of a timetable on when he's going to be back, just rehabbing. And I don't really understand that because it's January. It's we're just about to get into February here. I don't really understand why you can't just say, hey, yeah, he'll be back for OTAs or he'll be back for training camp, unless there actually is that worry that he's not going to be back, which then that starts to raise some questions about it. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not like concerned, but then again, it's a little weird that he didn't even like say that he's going to be back for OTAs or anything along those lines. And I understand that's 6 months down the line, but still, I think it's a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's definitely strange that they don't say anything, but that's how the Titans run things. I mean, most teams try to not give too much
Well,
away,
yeah,
but like I trust me, Ryan. I've watched this team for a long time. I watched Vrabel run this team where he literally wouldn't tell you anything until the day of. Uh,
that's
he'd
just
be
a
like,
patriot.
"Yeah,
That's a
this
patriot thing. That's just a patriot thing where
exactly."
these guys just they don't say anything. But once again, it's not like there's a game tomorrow. It's not like they're playing in the Super Bowl. You're sitting here like, oh, he might not play, he might play. You got a game plan for a couple quarterbacks. We're in late January, about to get into February, and he's not going to be playing until September. I don't get
I
it.
just think I also think it was trying not to take away from Salah's presser. I think he was just trying to keep it on topic, trying not to get too deep in it. Because I think once you answer one of those questions, you have to answer all of them. And
Yeah,
it's gonna take away like if he answered that question, there would have been two more about like how serious was the injury? What was it? This and that. And I think it might have taken away from it. Might have been another thing. He was trying to keep it because he answered really quickly and really fast.
yeah,
So I think he was just trying to just redirect. Um, I
I
think
mean,
if he
yeah,
has another presser at some point, uh, I expect a full answer. I mean, he didn't have surgery. It was announced that he didn't have surgery, which is what matters.
yeah,
This type of injury, which was I forget what it's a something sprain in his shoulder because the freaking Jags defender, as he's already crossed the goal line, just decides to put his whole body and shoulder into Cam's shoulder as he's on the ground.
that's awesome.
So that's a good cushion, right? Um,
It's like a pillow.
what a dick. What a dick. But yeah, and Cam was having a great game. And of course, it was so funny about 2 plays earlier, the announcers were praising Cam for being able to stay healthy because every other rookie quarterback had already been hurt that year at some point
Announcer
and had
shit just
not
goes
started.
crazy.
Yeah.
It goes
And
insane.
so like 3 plays later, he gets a shoulder strain or shoulder sprain or whatever it was. Um, So yeah, I can understand why he didn't mention anything. I expect to hear something further. He's not in a sling. He didn't have surgery. Uh, it's supposed to be about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks of just intense recovery, rest, a little bit of conditioning, little stuff like that. Um, he should be back for all the important stuff, OTAs, training camp, all that stuff. No problem.
Yeah, I get that as well, but I feel like just a quick little quip it in that, just be like, hey, we don't have a timetable, but we do expect him to be back for OTAs, or we do expect him to be back for training camp or whatever for the start of the season, and staying on that sort of tangent, whenever they were talking about development for Cam, as well, whenever Salah was asked about it, he basically said that they're going to start from day one, start from the ground up with him, just to try to basically teach him how to be a pro again, and teach him like how to take care of his body as a professional, how to train, get ready on game days and throughout the week as a pro quarterback. And I thought that was really interesting. I understand coaches want to come in and, do things their own way, but I thought that was really interesting because not necessarily throwing shade at the previous regime, but kind of just being like, I don't know, saw stuff on tape or not with Cam where it's like, yeah, a lot of his process was just kind of weird and needs to be rearranged. And with a guy who was a going into his second year, he has that opportunity to be there at the very start, because that was another thing you referenced. He's like he only like the rookies come in like midway through I think training camp or midway through OTAs, so he'll get that full opportunity to go ahead and start his development up again, or have a true full off season to be able to gain, develop a little bit, and just sort of building from the ground up, from how to treat his body right, during the off season, eat right things, train right and things like that, to prepping throughout the week for game day, and then obviously going out there and playing on the field. Just kind of want to get your thoughts on that as well, because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Um, I think getting right would be super important. You know, this is one of those things that there could be the most important off seasons for a lot of people, a lot of fans, and I think it's all centered around Cam. It's all centered around his ability to stay on the field. Uh, and you got to look at this from a perspective that's like right now he can't do much,
Yeah.
but if he gets with Dayball right now, uh, Jaden Daniels did the virtual stuff. That was a big thing. Like I remember seeing that come out where he was had the headset on and you could just press a button and you get to see all the routes in real time, and he's just getting mental rep after mental rep.
Hmm.
And they definitely need to get together with
Yeah.
that because I feel like that's a big deal, especially when you can't throw. Because it came out that Cam was doing that. He saw Jaden Daniels do it, and he was endorsed by it, and so he did it, and it did seem like he was more mentally prepared for those things. Like he didn't seem as lost. Um, and I just need him to keep doing that. And you know, I think now about getting on the field and stuff and preparing your body, that's stuff that we have no control over or don't really see. I wish, sometimes I wish I could be a fly on the wall,
Oh
like
yeah.
especially with these coaching interviews, because I wanted to know what they talked about. Like, what are you talking with Jason Garrett about? You know, like what was Jason Garrett brought in there to say? I want to know what insightful thing did you learn from that? But not to stray too far, but like, it's when
No.
you look at some of the stuff on his YouTube channel, but I don't know. It's hard to like really understand. I mean, of course, stay healthy, get
Yeah.
mental reps, get as many mental reps as you can get.
No, I get it, and like I said, I was just curious about the whole quote, because it was just, once again, talking about obviously your former pick, first overall quarterback, and to sit here and say that we're going to start building everything from the ground up, like it's day one with him, getting him as a rookie, in the off season, with his full development from treating his body right and being able to prepare in the weight room and stuff, as as a professional, to being able to prepare for game days, just building it all up from you know day one. I thought that was just an intriguing part of that. Is kind of what I was meaning, just because you don't really hear a whole lot, especially when you're getting hold of a guy for the first time as a new head coach, who is in obviously not drafted by you, and not a part. You weren't a part of the process of taking him to be on your team, to sit here and say like we're gonna start. And I know coaches, like I said, coaches want to do things their own way. I just thought that was kind of intriguing to kind of sit there and see that.
Yeah, I'm being so real. I didn't hear the question fully, so I answered that the best I could. Um,
That's in my
I was
wheelhouse.
looking at my phone for a second, so I was
Oh,
trying to figure out what you were saying.
scumbag, scumbag. So
That
he doesn't pay attention to me. What a freaking
that's
loser
my
over
fault,
here.
gang.
What a dweeb.
Okay, now I can
Dude,
answer
this
that
guy's a Titans
properly.
fan. What a loser.
Dude, I'm sorry. I can answer that much better now. Okay. I was trying so hard to figure out what you were saying, as you can tell by that first couple sentences. Oh, yeah. I think that's more of a thing against Brian Callahan is
Well,
what it
yeah.
is.
It's like,
Um,
yeah.
Clearly, obviously. It's just saying that, let's do it like a real football team. Let's do this not like like you'd been doing because apparently it wasn't working. We're just resetting. And I just
Well, yeah,
think it's
because
more, and plus it's also just coach speak, in my opinion. They're not going to entirely change his process. They're going to do not going to do everything completely different.
well, yeah,
But I think maybe it's also another thing where it's like, hey, Dayball tried to trade this last year's first, this year's first, and multiple day two picks to get you. He had a plan for you.
yeah.
Let's see how that works compared to Bozo Clownahan, uh, and let's see if that works a little bit better this year.
Well, I mean,
So
we talked about that. You'll see the episode on Monday. We're gonna be rating the entire rookie class, and those first three picks is what we'll start with on Monday. But that's something that you had talked about, where it's like as soon as Brian Callahan was fired, and you had did a whole different process for him, you saw the uptick in production on the field in all aspects, including Cam. So it's like what was he doing? Like, how are you not prepared to take this guy first overall and then not have a plan for him, or at least not a very good plan? Obviously, as guy sitting on his fucking couch now, with the rest of us going to be watching NFL on Sundays now from
I
his
just
fucking couch.
again, I wish I could be a fly on the wall. I would pay so much money to be able to watch what what happened. He seemed like a great dude, and I don't know what his coaching grade. Honestly, I kind of want to look that up. Like
I
what
can't
how
imagine it
the
was great.
NFL stuff, uh,
I just
Players
can't imagine it was great.
Association.
That it was very good, just because obviously with the way things ended, and even then it was like even when he first got hired, I know a lot of the media and I know a lot of fans were excited about it. I I never really understood it because once again, it's something we had talked about. It was a guy who felt like he kind of just rode the coattails of good quarterbacks, which
The
this we've seen
Titans.
a lot
Hold
of
on,
those
hold on.
seasons.
Listen,
But okay,
check
so
this out. The Titans. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off here, but it holds true. Players liked him. He had an A minus on the report card as a head coach.
all
See,
right.
I don't understand. Like how was he so bad as a head coach? I don't get it.
I think it's because I
I
think it's going back to what I was saying. It's like he just like with a lot of these coaches, you see it more on the offensive side of it because you can get carried by a quarterback. He just got carried by quarterbacks. I think you said that he was the quarterbacks coach in Denver with Peyton Manning, and then on top of that,
QB
obviously,
coach with Derek Carr in Las Vegas.
yeah, whenever he
Uh,
was, I'm sure whenever Vegas was actually doing, I guess they would have been Oakland at that point, wouldn't they? Or was he with Vegas?
no, it was Oakland, and
That's what I
so
figured.
and here's the thing that was kind of helping his resume. Derek Carr had his best year the one year Callahan was his quarterback coach.
Yeah, and
So
maybe there is some merit to it, but still, I think having riding the coattails of really good quarterbacks like obviously the one year with Derek Carr and then Peyton Manning and then Joe Burrow for the past couple of seasons before getting to Tennessee. I think that's it's never a bad thing to get your career boosted by good quarterbacks, but then again, whenever you don't have a guy who is going to be a perennial All Pro for years and a potential Hall of Famer, turns out you got to actually be a good coach and you don't really know how much of that was true with him. Obviously, at this point, kind of understand that he was not a very good coach, or maybe just not built up to be a head coach. But you know,
not yet, at least. He
yeah,
definitely jumped a spot. He should have been an OC play caller.
yeah,
Instead, he decided to first learn how to be a play caller while being a head coach at the same time, which
you just can't do that. I mean, that's
it's
just
stupid.
you just can't do because that's so much like it's so much you have to learn with already being a head coach, and then adding on play calling for the first time. Yeah, that's just a lot. And you could definitely see how he would get overwhelmed, and then definitely I know you said it during that first episode, which if you haven't listened to it, you should go listen to it. But be forewarned, the audio on it's not very good. Uh, you had mentioned it where it felt like he didn't really take the time to go be with the defensive side of the ball as the head coach, and guys were coming out and saying like, "Hey, can you come talk to us? okay, like we want to hear from you. Like we want to be able to like say like, cause you're our head coach too. I mean, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
It's
You
just
got a little. Let's see here.
yeah. I mean, it just
What is
he's
that?
I guess just overwhelmed with everything, which is kind of expected when you take on play calling duties for the first time on top of having to be a head coach and all the responsibilities that that takes. So it's like
And
you
Salah's done both before though,
yeah.
and that's the biggest difference. He's called plays for years. He's called plays.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not going to be a challenge for him to do both. I am not concerned. Like people were already whining and crying about him having to call plays and I'm like, "What are we talking about?
I don't think
There's
he.
not a guy who's more qualified to
Oh,
call
and also
plays
I
for
think
us."
having to call plays. I mean, he said it during the presser. He was like, whenever I was on the sideline with the Jets, not calling plays, he felt like the timeout and red flag man. He's like, basically, he was like he felt like he'd get more in tune with what the players are feeling calling plays, which I get that, but still, you know, it'll be different. It'll be a new set of challenges, but like you said, with him being already have that experience, obviously in calling plays, 'cause that's what got him the job, and then on top of that, being a head coach as well, and being sort of an off the ball head coach and letting the coordinators do their thing, I think that'll definitely help for him in the long run, and then also, just kind of shows the difference between him and Callahan because he's used to it at this point. He knows what it takes, and Callahan had no idea what either took. So it just,
Makes you think about maybe if Callahan would have been a CEO style head coach because it seemed like everyone liked him. Everyone liked being around
yeah,
him. People trusted him. I think he made the mistake, and there's a chance that he gets another job again because I feel pretty strongly that he could have been a decent head coach if he had the talent around him. Denard Wilson, his DC, great pick. I'd have Denard Wilson as our DC right now. He was a pretty good play caller. Um, would I rather have Robert Saleh? Yes, but um, just Bo Hardigree took over the play calling. Who called plays in Las Vegas. Uh, when Antonio Pierce was
yeah.
fired, T took over. And he did a great job. I think towards the end of the year, the team started coming together. It seemed like they got a little in tune, and that's all you needed. You just needed to look like a halfway decent team, and you would have had another shot. You would have been given one more year at
Oh
least.
yeah, without a doubt. Because I mean,
And so,
even with the struggles that they had, it's like yeah, you look like a decent team and you get another year out of this. But then again, would you rather have Brian Callahan with his perceived struggles, or you know a guy like Robert Saleh who's going to come in and be give that stability on the defensive side of the ball? Maybe not in year one, but throughout his as the seasons go along with him.
exactly, exactly.
But I'm just trying to think if there's anything interesting that we didn't sort of mention. I mean, a lot of it,
Mm.
like you said, was coach speak, which you kind of expect to see in these pressers. And I know I've mentioned that before, like beating a dead horse, but it's just what you expect to see. You're gonna see coach speak. You're gonna see things that are trying to get the fans fired up and be like, all the thank yous and things like that to the organization and family and things like that. And I think we covered it pretty well. Well, one thing I didn't mention was Dayball. He said that he's gonna have full autonomy of the offense. Dayball will, so it's gonna
Yeah,
be
he's going to
that.
be the CEO.
Yeah, he's gonna be the head coach of the offense, and Salah's gonna be the head coach of the defense. Is essentially what it's gonna be. But obviously Salah with the actual head coaching title. But did say that they were gonna get together and and still go through like discussions and things like that for both for all of the game plans and things like that. So once again, it just goes back to what I was saying at the start of all this. A lot of the things that we kind of suspected but didn't have confirmed did get confirmed with Dayball being, picked because because of his, history with developing young quarterbacks, and then that Dayball is going to be have full control over the offense, which you sort of expect from a guy who maybe doesn't really have that experience on the offensive side of the ball in the head coaching spot. And then on top of that, solid calling plays for the defense. So it's just a lot of confirming what we figured, and then getting the fans excited, which I think You said it. We are excited because it feels that feel it feels it just feels like a different sort of culture, like a punch you in the fucking mouth culture is gonna get instilled. And it's funny because you talked about it in that first episode as well, and I said it to you. I'm like, man, they should have had you in the interview rooms because you were the one who was saying like whenever call a bunch of the people like players, coaches, and things like that have all been around Solid. It's like, yeah, we love this guy. We love this guy. It's like, we love the guy as a person.
And that's what you need when your locker room has no direction.
Yeah,
You got to have some guy that'll bring you together. Everyone can like you, but if they aren't afraid of you, then you don't command the locker room. You don't command respect.
yeah,
Uh, your title can't be the only thing that commands respect. You need to be that guy. And I think Callahan didn't have it. Salah has it. So I'm excited about this season. I'm willing to be patient, as I think most NFL fans are not. Uh, but I mean, man, what I haven't been this excited in a while, in a long time. I think the last time I was this excited about multiple coaching hires, I didn't really want Callahan. I really wanted Ben Johnson when Callahan
yeah.
was hired. Uh, Even though he didn't even go anywhere, he stayed at Detroit for another year. Um, and I really wanted Mike McDonald so bad. So bad. I was like, this guy just looks like a head coach. Callahan, I wasn't mad about Callahan, but it was like it wasn't my first choice because it was like where he's gonna be the play caller and he hasn't called plays. Like, how is that gonna work? But
Not
he
well.
he did the whole presser and it looked fun, but yeah,
Spoiler alert.
it's been
It
a
didn't exactly.
not fun 2 years.
It didn't work. It didn't work very well.
I've
But
seen I've seen 6 wins in 2 years, and half of them shouldn't have happened. So, oh,
yeah,
it's been rough.
and I think that's the good thing with having a defensive, having a culture that's going to be, what you feel like based around defense, and a, that's going to be the side of the ball that's going to be the calling card for this team. I feel like with Salah as the head coach is that, we mentioned it. You're never truly going to be out of a game when you have a really good defense because they're always going to give the offense an opportunity to, get themselves back into the game. It's just a matter of can they do it, and with Dayball calling the plays and putting together the game plan and things like that, we'll have to see. I think it'll really be based off of what they do in free agency and what they do in the draft, and we'll have a better sense of clarity on what the game plan is gonna be with that. But you like I think the moves that they're making so far, you really like them, and we'll have to see how obviously things pan out because you don't play games on paper, you play them on the field, and things can go wildly different than what you may expect if it expected to go on paper than it would on the field, and we'll just have to wait and see. But I think I'm good. I think I've covered everything I wanted to at this point. So it's early morning, 8:28 in the morning. This should go up here in a little bit, but that's all we've got. Fourth episode in the books. Gonna want to tune in. Next episode's gonna be Monday. We're rating the rookie class, starting with those first three picks, and of course, Cam Ward being the main topic of that. We'll discuss all 9 picks for the Titans in this past season. So definitely want to check it out. First one's Monday, then the second one's gonna be Wednesday. There's one will be Friday. So the second, fourth, and sixth, it's gonna be really fun to talk about. For Ethan Jacobs right
Yes,
above
sir.
me, I'm Ryan Smith. This is the Two Tone Report. We'll be back on Monday.